Call to order a public hearing pertaining to a proposed issuance of economic development revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $2,300,000 for the benefit of Land of Lincoln Goodwill Industries. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus?
Here.
Mr. Fritzen?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. McBride?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Gaines is not here.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to a proposed issuance of economic development revenue bonds? Is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to the proposed issuance of economic development revenue bonds? And I am required to ask that question 3 times. Is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to the proposed issuance of economic development revenue bonds? Hearing no comment,
We adjourn.
motion to adjourn, thank you.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The public hearing is adjourned. We can't really start just yet, so relax for a few minutes. We got to go at 7 o'clock. Just note withdraw. WD. WD. Withdraw.
Hey, Wendy.
Security, yep. Checking the room. I was looking for somebody. No, Cheryl. Did you hear from Cheryl?
Well, I appreciate you doing it through town. I did the same. Appreciate you. Yeah.
We found it wasn't on page 72 of the 89 page on the thing we just had the public hearing on, because I would have been concerned about you if you'd been reading all the way through page 72.
I did not. It was on like page 6.
After about page 2, No, it's not.
That's why we have staff.
Yeah, it was on page 7.
You okay? Yeah, I'm good.
I was telling Chris that at the, Cheryl and I were both at the Special Olympics dinner on last week one night. Turn this off. And unanimous.
That's the magic word.
Call to order a regular meeting for the Normal Town Council for November 16th, 2015. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus.
Here.
Mr. Fritzen.
Here.
Mr. Preston.
Here.
Mr. McBride.
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz.
Here.
Mr. Mr.
Here.
McCarthy. Ms. Gaines.
We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item of business is the omnibus vote agenda. These are items that are considered routine and will be taken with one vote unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. I would like to be excused from voting on any bills. I may have incurred my duties as mayor. And
Move approval.
thank you.
Second. I'd like
Mr.
to pull item C, please.
Too late.
And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Items we are considering in the omnibus tonight are approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 2nd, 2015, and approval of town of normal expenditures for payment as of November 11th, 2015, and a resolution conditionally approving an amended site plan for Advocate Bromen having to do with the Merhurl Hall and 1913 wing of that property. Items, please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen.
Aye.
Mr. Preston.
Aye.
Mr. McBride.
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz.
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy.
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. Those items are approved. Item C is a resolution to appropriate $477,350 of the town's allotment of motor fuel tax funds for the improvement of Virginia Avenue from University Street to Franklin Avenue. Mr. McCarthy?
Thank you. Move approval.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Just reading through, noticing we're widening the street and wondering if there's any bike and pedestrian implications for what we're doing there.
Mr. Brown can answer that if you heard the
Or
question.
if there was even any thought of that at this early time frame.
Yes, Mr. McCarthy, we're widening it to a 3-lane road through there just to provide left turn lanes
Okay.
into the parking deck and to the main entrance of Advocate Bromen.
Any special pedestrian accommodation?
Not really. We're going to look at that during design and see if there's anything needed, but there's nothing special planned right now as far as any pedestrian lights or flashers or anything like that at this time.
Okay.
We're just getting started on the
Yeah.
preliminary design.
Right. And I know it's not a arterial named on our bike and pedestrian master plan. I was just curious if we had even started to think that yet. So I knew it's pretty early in the process. Thanks.
Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston.
Aye.
Mr. McBride.
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz.
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy.
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen.
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The resolution is approved. We move on to general orders. First item is a resolution adopting the Uptown Normal Master Plan update, referred to as Uptown 2.0. Motion for approval?
Move approval.
Thank you. Is there discussion on this item? I think we've had lots of opportunity to discuss this, but Ms. Lorenz?
I have a little more to discuss, or a question at least, clarification. As I read through the document, and we have had a lot of exposure to this, so that was very helpful in advance, but I just want to confirm my understanding that tonight's motion to approve this master plan does not necessarily stipulate what the type of railroad crossing will be. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
That's fair.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear and kind of do a fact check that was the case, because I think the author went, I think, to a nice measure of laying out the options, but didn't say one way or the other in writing what it would be. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Further discussion on this item? Please call the roll.
Mr. McBride.
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz.
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy.
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen.
Aye.
Mr. Preston.
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye, the resolution is approved. Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a purchase agreement for the property at 614 North School Street.
Move approval?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on this item. Go ahead.
Question for staff. One of the reasons that we're looking at acquiring this property is to make it from non-conforming to conforming as a single family. Mr. Peterson, am I right in understanding that since it's currently vacant and the current owner doesn't anticipate filling it, that even if we didn't purchase it, once that 6 months passes, it will become single family, it'll automatically become single family? Is that a correct understanding?
No, that's not correct. As long as I understand it, and Mr. Day can clarify this for me, but as long as it's the property owner's intent to maintain the property as a rooming house, then the owner does not relinquish the non-conforming use, even if there is a period of vacancy. There has to be a degree of intent involved to relinquish that use. So, for example, if it were, on the contrary, if it were vacant and the owner had announced that he or she wanted to sell it as a single-family property and no longer maintain it as a non-conforming use, that might present a different set of facts and could indeed cause the property to revert back to single-family. But since the owner has made it quite clear that he and his wife intend to maintain a rooming house, and in fact, I think have actually explored the possibility of renting it even now. I think there was some recent conversations with some potential tenants to go into that property even mid-semester, if you will, because it is a student rental. But even if it, my understanding, Mr. Day can correct me, even if it does remain vacant, given the owner's intent to maintain it as a multiple family property, it would not automatically revert back to single family. Is that correct?
Correct. Just a quick follow-up on that then, because I think I'm misunderstanding. There's a line in our action report about this. It says, there are two basic circumstances that may cause a non-conforming property to relinquish its status. The first being when the property remains vacant or unoccupied for a series of 6 months. Is that expressing something differently than what you're...
That is true, but there also has to be the intent of it reverting back. Just because it's vacant in and of itself is not sufficient. And that's been, I think, established by case law.
Okay. And then another question, if I may. Do we have any feel, as town staff, been inside the property to know whether we're leaning toward renovation or potential demolition at this point?
Mr. Tremmel, I'll let you handle that one.
Yeah, we've been on the property several times, Mr. Preston. It's going to be a tough one. There would have to be, there's going to be a small segment of the population that would be willing to tackle a property this size with regard to like a restoration. That's not to say that it's not possible. It's a big house. It's probably 3,500 square feet. It's had several additions cobbled onto it over the years. So, we'll certainly explore that option. It's not like a modern-day apartment where it's got, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. It's a cut-up floor plan, with a lot of current deficiencies that would not lend itself to an ideal restoration, but anything is possible. And so again, our hope is that the right person comes along, great, but if not, we have explored what it's going to, the other costs involved in demolition and that type of thing.
So do we think there's and I know this is kind of subjective, a decent chance or a majority chance that we could be in this $190,000 plus potentially cost to demolish and then end up only recouping 35 to 40 or so for the land afterwards?
Quite possibly.
That's a possibility, yes.
I will say, Mr. Preston, that I went through the house with Greg Tremmel and looked at the house. It's a 1860s to 1880s Italianate that has been pretty well disguised by numerous additions and that. So in my sense of it is, and to reiterate what Greg said, it would take a very special person to rehab that house, which would require tearing off 2 additions and trying to take it back. It'd be somebody who really wanted to take a look at that house in a historic manner. If such a person would come forward, I'd be open to working with them on it. But the amount of work it would take, I think financially, we'd still be in the same boat, because I don't think you're going to find anybody that's going to buy that house for $150,000 and put $200,000 in it, given the neighborhood. They'd never recoup their money.
I would agree.
Further on this item?
Just more a question maybe for Mr. Peterson, and I'll say I'm very supportive of this idea and this concept. I think it's good for the neighborhood and for the community as a whole. But this is the third instance in the last 2 months roughly, and I just wonder if maybe it's worth looking at perhaps bringing back the non-conforming buyout program.
Sure, we can do that.
Further on this item? Ms. Lorenz?
Perhaps a speculative question as well, but assuming it does meet the wrecking ball, what might likely come of that property afterwards?
Well, it would be, if it's demolished, then the town would attempt to sell the lot for new construction, yeah. And I think there's probably a market for that, probably looking anywhere from 30 to 50,000 for the sale of the lot, probably in that range.
Okay. I think there, if I may just follow up on a comment, I think maybe Mr. Peterson, if you could give, for the sake of the audience and anybody that might be watching online, a bit of a recap and the benefit that we've had in the report
Right.
of why we do these sort of things. Although it's not under the program, formal program per se, but could you give a slight kind of summary of why we do take these opportunities and what's the rationale behind it?
Sure. Well, first of all, by way of background for people that may be watching, this particular property, 614 North School, is in a single-family neighborhood. It's zoned single-family residential. However, due to the historical use of this property as a rooming house, a type of apartment building, if you will, its use was grandfathered in. So even though most of the surrounding properties are single-family, this continues to be multiple family. And I think this particular unit is licensed for up to 10 tenants, and they've historically had 8 to 10 tenants in this property. It also happens to be right in the middle of a historic district, which was designated several years ago by the town, and we have seen since that time a lot of positive investment in some of the older properties in this neighborhood. A lot of restoration has taken place. This property is kind of right smack dab in the middle of the historic district. It has been a perennial code enforcement challenge for the town. There's been a lot of property maintenance issues as well as tenant behavioral issues in this particular property over the years, and in that regard, I think it's safe to say that this has been a fairly serious neighborhood issue or concern. But we have dealt with that through our inspections department and our police department, also working on occasion with the university to try to address behavioral issues with the tenants. A unique situation occurred a few months ago where this property that was leased for the fall term, the fall semester, just so happens that due to a variety of circumstances, the tenants vacated the property, so it was empty, and Mr. Tremmel happened to have a conversation with the person who owns the property, who had fairly recently purchased it, had not had a lot of experience in the student market, and there was some indication that he might be willing to sell the property even if it involved a bit of a loss, because he'd put invested quite a bit into the property. So that really was the impetus for some conversation between staff and the property owner, that this might be an opportunity to eradicate a long-standing neighborhood problem. And of course, when we were able to negotiate a price that we thought was fair. We individually shared that with some members of the council and generally got positive feedback that this is something that we should proceed with. And so that really was the background and how this item made it on your agenda this evening.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. Hope that helps.
Further discussion on this item? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz.
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Gaines.
Aye.
Mr. Fritson.
Aye.
Mr. Preston.
Aye.
Mr. McBride.
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The resolution is approved. Item 8 is an ordinance describing and designating an area as an enterprise zone.
Move approval?
Thank you.
Second.
Is there discussion on this item? This is a reapplication for the enterprise zone that was, we were turned down for, and we reconfigured the application and are submitting again. Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Gaines.
Aye.
Mr. Fritson.
Aye.
Mr. Preston.
Aye.
Mr. McBride.
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz.
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. That ordinance is approved. Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement concerning an enterprise zoning designation and operation.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Same issue, discussion on this? Please call the roll.
Ms. Gaines.
Aye.
Mr. Fritson.
Aye.
Mr. Preston.
Aye.
Mr. McBride.
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz.
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy.
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The item is approved. Item 10 is a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale by the town of Normal, McLean County, Illinois, of its economic development revenue bonds having to do with the Land of Lincoln Goodwill Industries project. Series 2015, authorizing execution of a loan agreement, an assignment and an agreement, and a bond purchase agreement, all relative to said bonds, and authorizing other action to be taken with respect to issuance, sale, and delivery of said bonds.
Approval.
Second. Got to do it. Is there discussion on this?
I just
Ms.
had a
Gaines.
question. Does this amount of bonds, it's a different bond than what we do, and it's not ours to repay, but does it still show as some of our debt?
No.
Okay.
It's not reflected on our reported debt on our financial statements. Since it's really not our debt, we have no responsibility for its repayment.
Okay.
Ms. Lawrence?
Just a comment, and maybe that anybody has, either Mr. Peterson or anyone else, member from the staff, has a response, I'd appreciate it. And it really has to do with a concern that was raised to me earlier today, and I had to agree with it too, and that is sort of the aesthetic look of the building, particularly along Veterans Parkway. And, I understand, I'm sure, probably budgetary constraints and so forth, but, I just want to comment that I think as a community, we take great pride and care to, have landscaping standards and signage standards, all in the name of beautification and kind of what makes our community special. And to that end, I feel like the site is rather unsightly, as you come in, and it's one of the first properties as you're coming into the community and heading south on Veterans Parkway. Any conversation with the owners about that, and what might we expect?
No, when that facility was built, it was code compliant. We've since tightened up a lot of our codes that deal with aesthetics and landscaping and so forth, but we don't have the ability to go back and ask those property owners to comply with current code unless there's a major change to the property, an expansion or something of that nature. In this case, there wasn't. They're basically occupying the same structure. It's a different type of business, but it doesn't trigger our ability to go back and ask them to comply with current code.
Okay.
You can always, that request can be made, but to tie it to this financing, frankly, this financing for Goodwill is not a windfall.
Yeah.
It is going to result in a modest reduction in their interest costs on their debt, and that's why they're doing this. But it certainly wouldn't create a situation where they've got lots of extra money and then can go out and invest in the property. So at some point, if they do make major changes to that property and they put on an addition or do some significant renovation, that will trigger some of the newer code requirements that would result in maybe an improved appearance to the building.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay?
Thank you.
Further discussion? Ms. Gaines?
Well, I was just going to say, though, I don't think there's anything wrong with perhaps being heard, that we would sure appreciate it if there was some more landscaping that were put in and really try to be a good neighbor within our community. And we're not tying that to this, but just actually saying that that's something we would really like to see.
We would be happy to communicate that.
Thank you.
Please call the roll.
Mayor? Yep.
Oh, sorry.
I guess, that was a car dealership located there, and when that dealership closed, you have a piece of property that could have sat empty, could have been vacant for a long time, and become an eyesore. So I think the first important thing is that you have a productive property that's being utilized, and so I think when Goodwill took that property, we were thankful, I think, at the time that we weren't going to have an empty storefront for an extended period of time. And I understand, with our codes, and we've built this into our codes over the years, the requirements for landscaping and the like. But along a stretch like that, you would have to have in order to beautify an industrial-looking building, you'd have to have some really significant landscaping. I mean, I think relying on landscaping isn't always the best way to beautify a property, I guess is what I'm getting at, and so it takes a mix of things. But to me, the most important thing is that it's productive and there's activity there, and it's not something that's sitting vacant. I think probably if we had it to do over and look back at any plans we might have, and I don't recall just what role we might have played, if any, in it, because it's zoned for the use it has. But the facing side to Veterans Parkway, sometimes there's some activity there that generates some, overabundance of materials and things like that. So I think that would be my biggest concern, is if in the daily operation it becomes unsightly in that regard. And I don't know that any amount of additional landscaping without spending an excessive amount of money would really help that piece of property, actually.
Further? Please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. Item 11 is being withdrawn tonight, as that issue has been resolved. We have one item of new business, a presentation on Juvenile Justice Council's Delinquency Prevention Plan and Summer Jobs Program by Jason Chambers. I think we all know him quite well. And Alicia Leonard from Youth Build McLean County.
Good evening. I'm Jason Chambers. I'll let Alicia introduce herself.
Good evening. I'm Alicia Leonard with Youth Build McLean County.
I forgot how efficient your meetings are in terms of moving along. I brought work to do while waiting and didn't get to any of it.
You can save that for home now.
So we're here tonight. We have an organization in town, I know in your packets it describes kind of the evolution of the Juvenile Justice Council. The statutes under Illinois make it so that each county can have one of those now that can actually be jointly with some of the counties that are smaller. In McLean County, ours is standalone just with McLean County. It involves my office, Public Defender's Office, the 11th Judicial Circuit, and a lot of different state and law enforcement, Bloomington, Normal County, the Sheriff's Department, all of them are part of that, in addition to various stakeholders in McLean County, which are all tied to juvenile justice issues, different aspects of education. So, for example, Mark Jontry, the superintendents of the two major school districts are also included in that, as well as Alicia through Youth Build. At different times, the council has had some prevention plans, and basically the prevention plan is taking a look at what issues do we have or what things can we work on? And recently, about a year ago, we got a grant, and it started, we applied that towards getting an updated prevention plan since it had been a while, and oftentimes, things change. What's an issue now might not have been an issue 10 years from, might not be an issue 10 years from now, and it might be different than the issues we had 10 years ago. And what we were asking them to look at is, again, where are our issues? What might we be doing well, but also more importantly, what might we need to focus on? In the end, they came up with 3 top community needs for juveniles in McLean County. Those were, first, mental health services. We've been hearing a lot about that, but a lot of it focuses on adults. Particularly, one of the things we need are youth psychiatric services. This isn't just a McLean County issue. This is a nationwide issue, and that's one of the things that we want to focus on. The second one, truancy. This was actually a little bit of a surprise to me, not because I didn't think it was an issue. It was a surprise to me that it was an issue with all the other stakeholders as well. And enough so that it made it into the top 3 issues. So Mark Jontry, the Regional Superintendent of Schools, and I have been discussing truancy issues for quite a while. We've been talking about going forward on some of those, and this validated some of those concerns. And when we say truancy, we're not talking about kids who've missed 2 or 3 days of school. We're not talking about 2 or 3 weeks of school. We're talking about 2 or 3 months of school, where it's not just a symptom, it becomes part of the problem itself. The third is domestic violence. And with that, we really need to focus on early intervention before escalation. It's difficult at times because, you have a situation with domestic violence in juvenile situations where right after the incident has occurred, and maybe the police have done a custody situation, the child's being returned right back into the environment where that domestic violence occurred. It becomes a tricky situation to deal with. This is also an across-the-board issue, and what I mean by that is it's not isolated to one agency, one police agency. When you look at the different police agencies' numbers on juvenile crime, numbers 2 through 10 might be a little bit different year to year, might be a little bit different by agent. Normal's number 2 or 3 calls for service on a juvenile crime might be different from Bloomington's number 2 or 3. But number 1, across the board, the county, Bloomington and Normal, is all domestic violence. So going forward, we don't want to just take this plan and put it on a shelf and say, okay, now we're done. The committee is splitting up into the council, Juvenile Justice Council is splitting up into 3 committees, focusing on each of those 3 issues. Truancy, mental health services, and domestic violence. We're splitting it up by either areas of expertise or where we would need somebody's involvement. So for example, I don't really have expertise in education, but I'm on truancy because in order to go forward on those, the state's attorney's office would have to be involved. And we want, we're in the process of doing that, having each of those subcommittees say, all right, we've got these issues, what is it we can focus on? The plan also, in terms of rubber meets the road, how can we improve on these? So the plan also gave some specific recommendations, and as committees, those are what we want to focus on. Domestic violence, we're going to be looking at programs for youth and families focusing on early intervention. Adolescent mental health, again, we need to have a plan for developing that increasing need, not just for adults, but for juveniles as well. The county's been focusing on that, and I think we just need to make sure that we have a voice. And, a lot of the people who've been involved in that county plan are also on the JJC, so I'm confident that as those things progress, there's going to be an aspect that also includes the juvenile aspect of that. Coordinate services. So we really need to focus on collaboration of agencies for existing services. One of the things that a lot of the stakeholders repeatedly said was there are a lot of services and activities for at-risk youth in our community, but they're not promoted. A lot of people don't know about those. A lot of the parents aren't aware of those. A lot of the kids aren't aware of those. So some of what we need to focus on is that. I'm not saying that it's all there by any means, but what is there is not being utilized as well as it could. So a little bit of breaking down those silos. And it's one of the things that we've discussed as an organization that we think that we could try to play a role in terms of helping with some of that coordination. Lack of teen recreations. This is a difficult thing. I know you guys have looked at that oftentimes with the Parks and Rec stuff. The team programs are difficult to get involvement in. It's even tougher with some of the at-risk youths. Even if you create a program, when participation's low, program gets canceled. And I think that ties into the coordination of services. One of the last things is diversionary. And that's a big area of things that could be encompassed. Diversion can be kids that are already in trouble and focusing on what can we do to maybe do something that's punishment-wise that isn't criminal justice system. It could be, all right, a crime hasn't been committed yet, but what could we do that maybe would defer things? But also another big aspect of diversionary is jobs and mentoring. If a kid is busy, if a kid has somebody to turn to that might be able to help them stay out of trouble, that can be a big aspect. And sometimes giving them hope in terms of, I don't need to be hanging out and getting into trouble. I've got this jobs program that I'm involved with, or I have a job that I'm busy doing. That's less time for them to be doing other things. So I'm going to use that as a segue to Alicia to discuss the jobs program, which is now in its third year. Fourth
year.
Sorry, third year with that contract.
Absolutely. So we have been running the Summer Jobs Program in partnership with the Juvenile Justice Council. This summer was our fourth year. We have served 129 teenagers through the summer months only. Those young people were 16 and 17. They were under 18. So they were the juvenile population. About the breakdown is around 57% of them were Bloomington youth, and then about 43% were normal youth. So the program is all-encompassing, like Jason says, a lot of mentoring, a lot of work readiness, and I'll get into some of the specifics, but it is at risk. It is the absolute at risk. If you are in traditional school and you had a few bad grades, you don't fit the criteria of our program. These are teen parents, these are young people that are already involved in the juvenile justice system, or they are absolutely on the tip of getting involved. The majority of our referrals come from probation, some come from juvenile parole, and some do come from alt ed, and then our program, our charter school Youth Build, some of our young people have been able to be morphed in as well. But these are the young people that if they do not have positive leisure, constructive activities, they are going to shoot the crime rate up, and it's just, another way for them to throw another obstacle in their way. So the Summer Jobs Program has been, honestly, it's been a huge help to a lot of these young people. And I'll just give you some statistics. So as part of our summer program, our young people are also enrolled in AmeriCorps. That's a youth build program, but we save a certain number of AmeriCorps positions every single summer for our summer students. So our summer students alone, they have completed they've earned over $83,000 in scholarships for college. All of our youth build students as a whole are AmeriCorps members, and they earn probably $250,000 in scholarships as a cohort every school year. But we do think it's important to expose our summer-only students to the concept of post-secondary as well. So we do enroll them in some smaller AmeriCorps positions that they can complete during the summer. They're 300-hour slots. The total number of volunteer service hours completed for the summer cohort over the past 4 years is 26,000 hours. So we have lots of partners, the YWCA, Boys and Girls Club, oh my gosh, Home Sweet Home Mission, so many different places partner with us during the summer to provide the young people internship opportunities, because the population that we're serving, they don't get these opportunities, because even if they are still in traditional school, these are the young people that are on the cusp of flunking out, so they don't qualify for a lot of these programs that the traditional schools offer. So we're able to provide them a glimpse into what they can be if they just put some effort forth and have the right support. The number of classroom training hours, because we believe that it's so important not just to, here's this cohort of young people, now let's get you a job. If these young people had the ability to just go get a job, they would go get a job. They need soft skill training. They need some obstacles removed. They might be homeless. They might be pregnant. They might have a pending case. They might have a warrant. They might have all of these things. So we have to remove these barriers first and then train them in that soft skills and just help them boost their self-esteem before they have the confidence enough to go out and actually get a job. So they have, just the cohort in general, they complete about between 160 and 180 hours of classroom training every summer, and then that second half of the summer program, they do an internship at a local nonprofit. So we're really big, for those of you that are familiar with Youth Build, you know we're huge on giving back and doing service. So what better way for the young people to build their brand or rebuild their brand and get some real work experience other than volunteering at a place that they actually receive some services from. So Boys and Girls Club, Home Sweet Home Mission, food banks, things like that. It's very powerful. So the number of hours that young people have completed job shadows since we have ran the summer program is about 13,500. And again, think about 129 young people. So it's about 13,500 hours of internship that they've actually completed. We're also big on certifications, because providing young people an opportunity to see their accomplishment in a physical form, because so many of them are kinesthetic, they need to touch it, they need to see it, they need to put their hands on it. So we provide tons of certification opportunities for our students, and they're not in-house Youth Build, we made it up on a piece of paper certifications. They're certifications that we either purchase for them or that our staff is actually trained to administer these through another organization. So all of the young people involved in the summer jobs program since we started, so 129 got their OSHA certification, 97 of them were certified in residential construction, 20 of them earned their forklift license, 6 of them got their food handler's license, 2 received their hospitality and customer service certification, 26 of them earned their entrepreneurship certification, and 48 of them were certified in healthy relationships by the YWCA. Again, these are all things that they can put on their resume, that employers see that these young people are going above and beyond, not just the typical, okay, I'm in high school or I'm working on my GED, now I want to work here. But employers are actually seeing these certifications and seeing that our young people are bringing more value than just a traditional teenager. So the number of youth entering the program over the course of the years without diploma or GED was 119. The first cohort, 10 of our students, they had just graduated, and we were it was the pilot year. So 10 of our young people had completed their diploma, and we enrolled them in the program after as kind of a bridge. But 119 out of 129 had not completed their diploma once they entered the program. Since completing summer jobs, 68 have finished their diploma or their GED. Currently, because it is a younger population, we had some of them when they had just turned 16, so they're still in high school. 44 of them are still in school. There are 7, unfortunately, that are either not in school or that I have no information on. So we have information on 122 out of 129. We actually have a ton of them in college, which I'm so proud of them. That first cohort, can I just say, it was an experience. That was our first year as well of doing summer programs, so it was an experience. But we've learned a lot, and the young people, they enjoyed it. We actually have 32 that are currently in college or trade school right now. 2 will complete their AA, and 1 in August of 2016 and 1 in May. These are from the first cohort, so 2012. The schools that they are enrolled in are Heartland, Lincoln College, Normal, Lincoln College, Lincoln, MTI, and Hair Masters Institute. So a lot of them, because they're kinesthetic, they like MTI, they like Hair Masters. And we also have had 3 young people complete their certifications at MTI that were originally, I think it was between the first and second cohorts. So we have 1 young person who's a journeyman welder, 1 young person who earned their HVAC license, and another young person who is doing dental assistant. 3 of them enrolled in the military. 47 of them are working right now, and some of those that are working are also in college, so they're doing both. Some of them are in high school still, and some of them are just working, trying to, figure it out. Everyone doesn't go right into post-secondary after graduation. They need a few years to bounce around, my son included. And what I found unique was that there are 11 of them that have been working at the same job since summer jobs. it was ironic, right? So, I mean, it was awesome because they'd never had a job before, but because they did receive a small stipend every 2 weeks when they were in the program, it got them used to being able to pay their phone bill and buy things for themselves and actually have some money in their pocket. It got addicting. So it's like, great, let's get a job and keep a job. But I'm 100% transparent all the time. For those of you that know me, you know I will tell the truth 100% of the time. So we did have some rearrests after the program. 17 out of 129 did have, they got rearrested again for one charge or another. So that's 13%. And then we did exit surveys on all of the young people, and 100% of them acknowledged that being in the summer program changed their lives.
I would mention, I guess, I know you started off mentioning the at-risk youth aspect. There is that 13% who was rearrested, but the vast majority of them had been in custody at some point
Right.
prior to entering the program.
Absolutely.
So, I'd say if somebody says they have 100% success, they're probably not telling you the truth.
No. And it's a process. I mean, it's very much a process for them, but the fact that they all left the program with either certifications, training, and the majority of them, they're doing well. They're moving forward, some of them faster than others, but the fact that, where their environment is and what type of environment they come from, I think they're doing remarkably well. So.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Well, I was just going to say, I've worked with Youth Build before, and I just knew what a great, great, great job you guys do. And I saw it there. And of course, you're not going to have absolute success with everyone because there's a lot of mental health reasons, a lot of personality disorder reasons, all of those sorts of things. But boy, there's a lot that make a difference. It makes a huge difference. And just what this program is doing, it helps a lot of these youths to actually have much more insight into themselves. And when they can actually understand themselves, they can learn to make new decisions because now maybe the world makes a little more sense.
Absolutely.
So thanks for all your work.
And I would mention, the JOBS program would not exist without the support that we get from Bloomington and Normal's Council. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Ms. Lorenz?
Did you want to go first?
Nope,
Okay,
go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for this presentation, and comment and then a question. Comment would be just to underscore what you already said, Mr. Chambers, about the need for, a lot of the discussion around mental health programming and infusing some new dollars into that, the need for the teens and the adolescents. Just last week, I happened to have a good friend of mine, teacher at a high school here in Normal, say to me emphatically that she hoped some of the dollars from the new dollars earmarked for mental health would go to help some of the high school kids because she happened to have a day that day that wasn't that out of the ordinary that, my jaw dropped in terms of the issues that they're facing with kids who are in school, just maybe different pressures in this generation. So that's the comment. The question then, maybe kind of a segue too, is that are you able to, of the 129, 130 kids, is that enough? Are you able to provide opportunities for everyone, or is there a waiting list?
We have had to turn young people away. Well, this is the thing, because the cost of the program, we do get funded through the Juvenile Justice Council, but Youth Build also contributes significant amount of funding. We don't ever want to turn young people away. That is the worst feeling in the world when a young person is trying to change their life. There was a close call this summer. But we actually got a last-minute, the city of Bloomington got a last-minute donation, and we were able to take all of our youth.
Okay.
But it was literally down to 30 minutes before we had to make decisions. But to this point, we've not had to turn young people away. But we would love to expand.
Okay.
Because the number of applications we get every summer, young people, sometimes, starting out young people aren't always as reliable in the follow-through. But I think this summer alone, I got 70-plus applications for the summer program. and everyone went through orientation, and we were very upfront that we're only able to take this number. And I think that might have been a discouraging factor for some of the young people. So in the respect of having to turn them away at the last minute, no, but there have been a lot of young people that have applied, and we've been very upfront that we can only take this many young people for the summer. But being able to expand would be ideal, because there are so many young people. And I mean, actually, a lot of young people that we have, that have come through the program since we started are referred by their friends who were in the program before, and then they ultimately get referred through probation if they're,
Interesting.
or their counselor or case manager.
Yeah, okay.
The times when we've had unexpected funds that have made it so that we've been able to divert it into that, Youth Build's been great about saying, okay, great, then we'll just do a bigger number of it.
Okay.
They
Okay.
have been able to accommodate that very well.
Thank you for what you do.
Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you both for engaging in this, providing pro-social engagement opportunities in our communities as alternatives is critical, and I love it. Love to hear the coordination with the agencies. What we hear in my line of work and some other community initiatives is the importance of mentorship. And it sounds like you're partnering with some pretty good groups that already have established mentor networks that are probably doing really good supportive work to help guide these kids and to make some of those different decisions that my counterpart mentioned just a little bit ago. I do want to just lend a little bit of support. We met a couple years ago. I'm not sure if you remember at an event, but you had some of your participants. I think it was.
usually have them with me.
I think it was year 2. I think, and the enthusiasm of these kids for the opportunity that was doing something of value. You were giving something that was inherently valuable for them. They felt they had a role and a place, and they were so excited about it. And even talking about getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go do some concrete work.
Like concrete.
Yeah, the concrete work. But I never saw kids more excited about that in my life. But clearly you're having an impact, so thank you a lot for what you're doing.
Thank you. Those two young people, actually, Josh and Dante. Dante is in his 2nd year of college, and Josh is E4 in the Army. I don't remember.
Okay.
He's in the Army. He's made a career out of it. He keeps, and he's making some really decent money. So he's military bound. He said he wants to do it for the rest of his life.
Marvelous.
One of the other issues has been finding employers sometimes, in terms of, a lot of the kids we're dealing with are 15, 16 years old, and with the job market as it is, finding people who are willing to, there are some employers out there who are saying, yeah, we'll take part in this, but I think Youth Build would probably welcome anyone else who is willing to participate in that as well.
Yeah, we look for the actual employment aspect. We really look at that towards the end of the program, because we know that a lot of them, just because they are so defeated, it can take a lot longer than the 9 weeks that we have with them to build them up enough that they would feel confident enough to go into a workplace. But all of the young people, we do an employer panel at the end of the summer, and that's where we actually have employers over that are hiring. They are familiar with our students. They are familiar with the population that we serve. So they know some of the obstacles that our young people are facing, but they're just willing to take a shot on our young people. And they come over, and it's just a panel just like this, and they, talk to the young people in a group about expectations, timeliness, all the things that teenagers struggle with, whether they're at risk or not. Right. They're always late. Yep. So, and the expectations of the companies, and, it's a really good eye-opener, and they do some mentorship. They do some one-on-one time with the young people and say, if you were to work for Kroger's or Bob Evans, these are the things that I would expect of you. And we kind of do these breakout sessions. So after all of the companies do kind of their panel discussion, then they anyone who's interested in working at this company, they go meet with them. And anyone who's working at this company, they go meet with them. So it's kind of this coaching factor before they actually do the application. And then we walk them through the application, and we build their resumes. And it's been It's been really good. Honestly, the YWCA and the Boys and Girls Club are hiring our young people like crazy. The YWCA has hired, once they turn 18 and have their diploma, the YWCA has hired like 5 of our young people that either started out in summer jobs or they were a youth build student and went through summer jobs. But that all happened through their internship because they got to see how the young people interact with the kids and they got to see them at work. And the Boys and Girls Club has got 3 of our young people on their list. So when they graduate, they want them to come and work there.
Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Before taking a motion for adjournment, are there comments or concerns? Ms. Lorenz?
More of a public service announcement. I had a couple of people call me today with what I thought would be worthy of sharing with the council and anyone here. A couple of events coming up in our community. One this Thursday that just was scheduled at 2:30 at Broadview Mansion, the Olympic High School Madrigal Singers. So if you have some time this Thursday afternoon to mosey over to the Broadview Mansion, it'd be a beautiful place, I'm sure. And then I also was a recipient of an email about a send-off, a farewell send-off to our Mitsubishi plant workers next Tuesday, the 24th at 2:30. Probably more appropriately would be deemed a gathering of hope and gratitude for these workers who will be leaving their final shift on that day at 3 o'clock. So again, a gathering at 2:30 on 1124 at the Mitsubishi plant, and there'll be directions on where people can go and just basically show our appreciation and wish them well. So, my 2 public service announcements.
Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen? Mayor Cruz?
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, Kevin, catch your